Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You'll too! You'll too! You'll too!
Everybody here dies by dawn. Dead by dawn!
Welcome to the Spookshow. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spookshow. I'm Josh and I'm joined here with Donnie.
Yo.
Tiana.
Hey.
And the Professor Smook.
What's up?
Once again, as already the early 2024 tradition, Will is not with us. He had some other stuff going on, so he couldn't make it, which is unfortunate for sure, but hopefully he'll be back next week. But it's also ironic because this is the movie that he picked. He chose this movie, and we're going to be talking about the cult classic They Live from 1988. So it's unfortunate for him that he couldn't be here, but it's fortunate for us that we are here and that we got a chance, had a legitimate excuse to watch this yet again, right? Like, I'm sure this is one we can get out on Front Street that we've all seen multiple times, right?
Certainly, yeah.
We just saw it like 2 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is one of those ones for me. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
It's been
same
a dozen times at least, over my life. Always been a favorite of mine since probably the early 90s, because I didn't see it in 88 when it came out. It was some years later, but probably early to mid 90s, and I've watched it tons of times.
I'd probably say about the same time, about mid 90s, I guess.
Yeah. So even though this isn't a cult corner pick, it feels almost like a cult corner selection. So speaking of which, next week will be Cult Corner, and we will tease at the end of this show what we're going to be talking about next week. But trust me, it's another good one. Back to back, man. We've got it's pretty stacked right now. Then that will come crashing down the week after that.
The next one.
And we might have to mention that at the end too. But anyways, before we dive into this one though, we want to throw out there that you should go visit aaspookshow.com, the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can go to our YouTube page, where every month we have Video Vortex, Grindhouse Gutter, Hammer Horror in Order, where we've kind of realized on Hammer recently that we had skipped a few movies. So right now we're kind of doing Hammer Horror in Order Addendum, where we've gone back and tried to patch some of the holes that we had left out, because the whole gimmick there is that we're watching the movies in chronological order. Well, we're kind of out of order right now, but we're trying to fix that over the next couple months. So stay tuned over on our YouTube channel for all those shows. Also from aaspookshow.com, you can go to our podcast archive, all 195 past episodes. Plus, actually, I think there's a bonus thrown in there. They all live in the podcast archives, which you can find on the website. And of course, our Patreon, patreon.com/aaspookshow, where every month you get a video minisode, including the Library of the Professor, and also the much maligned on our part, much loved on your part, Crapster Piece Theater, where this month, actually, this Friday, Crapster Piece number 23. Good God. We're all the way up to number 23 on Crapster Piece. That's crazy. But we'll be talking about the Stallone classic, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So we'll see whether that's as steaming of a turd as some of the more recent ones. We'll find out. But yeah, that you can only listen to that by becoming a patron over on patreon.com/aaspookshow. So we encourage you to do that and help out the show. So without any further buildup, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for They Live.
Masters! What do these things want, and why are they here?
You still don't get it, do you, boy?
They have recruited the rich and the powerful.
They're running the whole show.
Wake up! They're all about you, all around you. Blinded us to the truth.
Take a look.
They are safe as long as they are not discovered.
I don't know what they are or where they came from, but we gotta stop them.
Stay away from me.
Put these on.
They have us. Look at them, they're everywhere. Our owners.
We have no other choice.
I don't like this one bit.
Leave it alone, man. It ain't none of my business. Ain't none of yours.
We have been lulled into a trance.
Listen to what I'm saying to you. We're in trouble. The whole world's in trouble.
Control us!
You're sending some kind of signals out of TV sets.
I've got one that can see.
Mama don't like tattletale.
Now we start spilling some blood.
Let's go!
Push a button.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Yeah, that reminds me. We talked about the Magic Mind, last episode.
Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that last
Yeah.
week, and we've actually partnered with them to kind of give everybody a discount. But we can kind of describe exactly what it is before we get into that. Like, this is more of like, it's an energy drink, right? But it's more of like something you drink with your energy drink. So like, I guess with your energy drinks or your coffee or your tea, whatever you have in the morning to kind of get you going, you can drink a little bottle of Magic Mind with it in the morning, and you can get like a full day's boost of energy, and kind of helps you focus, which is all going to lead to better productivity, right?
Yeah, I actually did try it, and one thing about kind of my experience was like energy drinks. They keep me up all night. I'm usually up until the next day. Which is dumb, but and they also, just kind of increase my anxiety and kind of make me wig out every now and then. But yeah, since trying Magic Mind, I do, you talk about feeling focused, and I feel more productive, certainly less stressed, and not as anxious as. And something else also is that I'm actually sleeping better.
Well, I think that really goes into what the ingredients are, the stuff that's in it, like matcha tea.
Yeah.
It's got ashwagandha, which that's specifically there to help reduce stress and anxiety. So
yeah, I take that anyway. I take little ashwagandha gummies, which I still take.
Yeah, so there's a little boost with your daily Magic Mind, and it's also got lion's mane mushrooms and cordyceps mushrooms. So it's loaded with all that good stuff. If you're into the natural ingredients type stuff, I think this is the thing for you. So really what you want to do is you want to go check out their website, magicmind.com/JAN All American. That's our link to get you there, and you put in the code All American 20. That's right, it's All American 20, all one word, and that will give you an extra 20% off, which gets you to a total of 75% off. Now, that code that we just gave you in this whole thing that they got going on this month, that's till the end of January. So, once again, it's magicmind.com/JAN All American, and then you put in the code All American 20 when you're checking out. You the benefits. I think you'll see the benefits like we did. We tried it out, and I think you'll enjoy it. So check it out. So, like we said, this is one that we've seen multiple times. Kind of a cult classic favorite, not just of us, but of a lot of people, I'd say. And it's one of those movies, too, when I was doing a little bit of the background, dig around. It wasn't necessarily a highly successful movie or anything like that. So it kind of does fall in that cult criteria, too, of like something that was not necessarily loved by the critics and everything at the time. I think they I don't know if they across the board kind of shit on it at the time in 88, but it wasn't highly thought of until there was kind of a, reemergence on the cult scene, so to speak. And then some of the critics kind of gave it a second look, and now they look back on it like, oh, this is one of John Carpenter's masterpieces. But at the time, I don't think there was really that feeling about it, right, Smoke?
No, I think I guess at the time they thought there was too much heavy-handed social commentary at that point in time, where I think it took a few years for that part of it to sink into the consciousness of people, I guess. Yeah. And people see it now as more of a, I think that social commentary aspect of it is more appreciated now than it was then.
Yeah, this is definitely, I wouldn't necessarily say heavy-handed as much as I would say he is not being subtle here, right? Like that's not the point of this movie. I mean, he's going for the jugular of consumerism and all that, you know, the feeling of the 80s of Reaganomics and all that stuff that were going on at the time, right? I mean, he's going right for it. But and maybe that at the time rubbed some people the wrong way, but I think, you know.
Because if you think about the 80s, as much as we all love the 80s, because we grew up, all of us grew up during that time period and everything, you know, it was very plasticky as far as like the consumerism was just rampant. I mean, you could say it's even worse now as far as consumerism. But at that time, it was really just everything was seen as in your face, extravagant, exaggerated. And the consumerism was everything. And like you said, it probably did rub some people the wrong way when you start pushing that back in their face that, you know, maybe you shouldn't be doing, you know, spending this much money on stuff you don't need or whatever.
Yeah, this way you're living and this consumerist lifestyle and everything, you should probably pull back, you know, and people don't want to, I guess that's the point, right? Like you don't want to remove the filter. You don't want to, you know, you just want to keep living your life and just be happy, man. Just go with the punches, be happy. That's the whole point, right? A lot.
You know, one thing that I realized about this movie that I'd never even paid attention to before, I don't even know if I knew it or forgot it or what, but the fact that it's based on a short story from 1963, which was called 8 o'clock in the morning by Ray Nelson. Yeah. I had never even realized that until just watching it and paying attention to the opening credits more so closer this time around, all the opening, you know, and that popped up. And I just always thought it was completely a 100% original John Carpenter thing. But the thing is, I haven't read that short story, and now it's going to make, I am going to probably have to track it down soon and read it just to see. I mean, it's 1963, so they can't be too, it's got to be mostly Carpenter coming up with the stuff relevant to the 80s at the time when it came out. So, but the structure of the story comes from that short.
Yeah, from what I understand, he did change a lot. Like, yeah, the basic structure of it is there from that original story, but he took it and ran with it. You know, it is a different take. Because I think in that one, everyone, I think there was some hypnotism going on in that original story. I think that was kind of the human race had been hypnotized, and that these aliens were controlling everything that way. Not quite similar, but not quite the same way that they do it here, you know?
Yeah.
And that Carpenter had actually acquired the film rights to not only that short story, but apparently there was a comic book to write the screenplay. And I think he did change the name too, right? I think, what's his name in this is John Nada or something like that. I think is his name. I'm talking about.
Actually, we don't know his, we don't know his first name.
Maybe that's what it was. I think in the original story, his name was John Nada, I think, but then they changed it to Nada. Yeah. It would be interesting though to go back and read that because that was originally published in like a magazine too. So it's probably not a massively long short story. You know, I know it is a short story, right? It's short, but like there are different degrees of short stories. Like some can be like literally just a couple pages long, and then others can be like, you know, a Stephen King short story is still like 100 pages. You know, so there are varying degrees of short story, right?
True, yeah. And if it, like you said, if it was first published in a magazine, that kind of brings to mind like a Pulp Fiction type story, something along the lines of or that type of, you know, pulp story that probably is fairly short.
It definitely feels John Carpenter-esque though when you hear that story of like he's basing it on this short pulpy type cult, you know, story that would have been published in a magazine. Kind of feels like The Thing, right, where he adapted that original film from the 50s. So like clearly he's taking stuff from his childhood is what he was doing here, and then adapting them, changing them to what, you know, the point that he was trying to make with his movies and stuff, you know. So he's definitely known for that kind of thing.
Even that movie was based on The Thing from Another World. The 50s movie was based on a Pulp Fiction story. A little clear.
So these are all the things that he probably grew up enjoying and everything, and then he wanted to kind of put his twist on the story. You know, it was another example of that. Some of the background info here. Of course, there are I found 3 different titles, but obviously the one is just kind of like the actual full title is John Carpenter's They Live. The other one that I found is Invasion Los Angeles, which that would have been pretty good too, right? Although that's probably not as broad as like the story they were trying to tell is, like you're in this general area, but like the way I kind of felt it was just not Los Angeles, not even probably the United States, but the entire world, right? Although they didn't dive deep into that, but it's probably more than just this general area that they're talking about here, right? With these aliens.
Yeah, I would say that if he had an even bigger budget, maybe he would have showed some other things going on. But it's like, I got this budget, so I'm gonna concentrate on this certain city and the resistance fighters here. But yeah, I got the impression that it's probably worldwide.
Yeah,
all others have these little resistance units. Maybe they didn't have sunglasses. Maybe they came up with some other concept to see them or whatever. But yeah.
And bottom line is, I think They Live is a better title than Invasion Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not that that's a bad title,
Yeah.
especially for the 80s, right? It kind of fits, but They Live is a better catchy title, you know, along with that poster and everything.
Gave you the opportunity to have that really cool opening where it's like graffiti sprayed on the wall as the title of the movie as it stands off of that.
Yeah, that was awesome. How it kind of just slowly dissolves into the graffiti like that. It's perfect. Perfectly done. But this is even better. This other alternate title. Now, this one is a title, I think it's like an English title from Thailand. There it was known as They're Not Dead, but They're Not Human. Exclamation point. So that's an awesome title, right? Like, I think I'd still check that movie out.
Yeah.
Although it's a mouthful.
Ties into the pulpiness. I mean, that's even more pulpy than the title of the Pulp Fiction story, which I think was 8 o'clock in the morning or something, which is a very pulpy title.
No.
That one is more like a pulp title.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not dead, but they're not human. But it was released November 4th, 1988. It was produced by Alive Films and Larry Franco Productions, distributed by Universal Pictures in North America, and internationally it was distributed by Corelco Pictures. IMDb has it as a action/horror/sci-fi film, so it definitely meets all those criteria, I believe, in small ways. Rated R, total runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes, so it's just right for me. The porridge is just right. It was filmed in Los Angeles, mostly in Los Angeles, but there were some spots. I think in particular the stuff with the church was shot in Atlanta, Georgia, from March to April. So a little over a month or so, I think about 5 weeks of 1988. So this is a pretty quick turnaround, right? Like they shot this for about a month, March to April of 88, and then this came out in November of 88. So pretty fast turnaround. Also very impressive is what they got here out of the budget. The budget that I could see, only $3 million. So, I mean, I think this finished product is, you know, compared, for instance, compared to the movie that we watched just last week when we were talking on Cannon Fodder, Braddock Missing in Action 3, that had a budget of $9 million. Now, you tell me which one looks better. And I know John Carpenter to Aaron Norris, right? But still, right? I mean, Cannon to anything John Carpenter ever did, but still, what he did with $3 million versus what Aaron Norris and Cannon did with $9 million. Just think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this movie went on to gross $13.4 million, which I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I would call that a minor success. I'm sure they anticipated more with John Carpenter, but, you know, still not bad. I have the top 10 from that weekend that it was released. So this is the weekend of November 4th through the 6th, 1988. So compared to just last week when we were talking about Braddock, this is the same year, but that was in January of 88. Now we're fast forwarding to November of 88. So we have a whole different slate of movies here. Number 10, Alien Nation.
Just turning old during that time period. That's turned 50. November 6th.
There you go.
Let's see what's out. Remember, so we'll see what's up.
Did you go? I don't recall whether you said, did you go see this in the theater or not? They Live or no?
No, I don't remember. I don't think I saw this in the theater, unfortunately. I wish I had. I don't know why that time period, because I mean, I love John Carpenter.
Yeah, it seems like something you would have been all over there in 88.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Maybe I listened to the critics and shouldn't have. I doubt it, because I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
I never looked at the critics, but I definitely wasn't at that time.
Maybe there was something.
I don't know why.
Maybe there was something in Fangoria or something that turned you off beforehand. You're like, no, I'll wait. Who knows? Anyways, number 10, Alien Nation. Number 9, Gorillas in the Mist. Boy, that's one I haven't thought of in quite some time. Number 8, Punchline. Number 7, Mystic Pizza. Number 6, Number 6 in its opening weekend, The Good Mother. That's a Disney flick. Number 5, and we'll mention this again here in a second. In its third week, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
I did see in the theater. I did see that in the theater.
There you go. Number 4, The Accused. Number 3, and these last 3, this is opening weekend for them. Number 3, Everybody's All American. You got me. I don't really remember that one. Number 2, U2 Rattle and Hum. And number 1, They Live. Made $4.8 million there in its opening weekend for Universal. So it opened up, I'd say, I mean, it was number 1. So, I mean, that's, I'm sure they were pretty happy about that. Although I'm sure they wanted more money out of it, but, you're just looking at that slate though. It was pretty slow time for the box office. I mean, but you're coming off Halloween, and the reason I mentioned Halloween 4, this is the weekend after Halloween, is this was actually supposed to come out the same weekend as Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers did. But because they didn't want to confuse the market with John Carpenter and everything, the obvious connect. I know that Carpenter didn't do that, but there's the obvious connection. I guess they just didn't want to be up against it.
Compete.
They delayed the release by 2 weeks. So that's why this came out then. So this was actually supposed to be out during the Halloween, season proper. And they just wanted to duck Michael Myers there. So ironic, right, with John Carpenter's involvement.
Yeah, I definitely seeing Halloween 4 in the theater. I don't know why I didn't see They Live a few weeks later, but yeah.
Future Smoke wants to kick past Smoke's ass for this.
Yeah. Because hindsight 2020. If they're like, I only have a few bucks to see one movie, and I'm going to wait till I would have seen They Live in hindsight. Yeah.
Then it's time for Mystic Pizza.
Yeah. It is, I guess.
But yeah, like you said, this was based on the short story by Ray Nelson, and another inspiration a little bit later on. Not for this movie, but this movie inspired something a little bit later on. This inspired street artist Shepard Fairey to do his Obey, the Andre the Giant sticker that everybody has seen. Trust me, you've seen it. And then it says Obey on the bottom of it. That's one of the main inspirations for this. Ironic. I'm sure there's got to be some connection there too, that he chose another wrestler, right, for his art. Like it's not Piper, but it's Andre the Giant. There's got to be something there, right? If you could get into the mind of Shepard Fairey or some explanation, there's got to be something there, some connection to it. But yeah, that's a well-known piece of street art for sure. I dare say you could probably go just about anywhere where there's a bunch of stickers stuck on walls or something kind of graffitied or anything. You'll probably see that damn sticker somewhere mixed up in the middle of it, right? Or on a telephone pole in your town, somewhere, I can guarantee it. But as we've mentioned, this was written and directed by John Carpenter. It was also written by Ray Nelson. It stars, really the only main three that you need to talk about here is it stars Roddy Piper, the famous professional wrestler, Hall of Fame wrestler, as Nada, Keith David as Frank. I mean, good Lord, you go on IMDb and type in Keith David and you'll find almost 400 credits, I think it was, something like that to his name. I mean, that dude still works.
He's in everything, almost.
He's like
he's like the Black James Hong.
Pretty much. Not quite, but pretty damn close.
Yeah, pretty close. The
dude's been in everything, man. TV, movies, cartoons. I mean, he lends his voice to a ton of stuff. I mean, you name it, that dude's DNA is somewhere laying around in every production, it seems like, in the last 40 years. And it also has Meg Foster as Holly. Although it's a fairly small role in the movie, still I think she's big enough to mention here, right?
Yeah.
And of course, he only pops up a couple of times as a drifter, but George Buck Flower.
Yeah. That guy's awesome.
Yeah, a well-known kind of would you character actor, right, Smoke?
Yeah. He's in stuff that you won't remember. Like, because I was sitting there trying to rack my brain and what the hell? I mean, because he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull up exactly what. You just know that when it's kind of like, was it Dick Miller that was like, no, is that his name? Yeah, Dick Miller.
Yeah, Dick Miller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's another one like James Hong, like Keith David, where you're looking like Jesus, like you see so much stuff and then stuff you even forgot about. Yeah, so George Buck Flower is another one. I mean, he was in Back to the Future, Starman, Village of the Damned. Yeah. I mean, like all types of stuff.
Escape New York and other John Carpenter movies. He was like just some random street drunk or something like that in Escape from New York.
Did you guys, I mean, like there's tons to talk about here with the movie, but did you guys have any other background stuff you wanted to bring up before we dive into it?
Yeah, I didn't really have much other than, I covered this movie back when we did Travis's podcast on the Cinema 9 a couple years ago, actually.
I was about to say, that's probably been a little while back. So, you have to go back and compare your thoughts to it then to now, even though it's been a short period of time just to see if any of your points are any more or less valid these days, right?
Yeah.
It's intermission time. Time to pause and refresh at the snack bar. During this short break, you can treat your taste of good food and sparkling cold beverages, including delicious Coca-Cola. If you're hot dog hungry, we have them. Sizzling, juicy hot dogs served in warm, oven-fresh buns. Plus a complete menu of all your favorites. Visit the Refreshment Center now. Enjoy delicious food and ice-cold Coca-Cola.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to check out their service. So, I mean, you may or may not know how this works. You go and sign up using that audibletrial.com/spookshow. They give you a credit on Audible. You can take that credit and you can get any audiobook you want on the service. And if you decide, you know what, I don't want to keep this, you know, it's more than I can afford at the moment, you can cancel it. You still get to keep that free book. So I think it's worth, it helps us out, and it's worth it for you because you get a free audiobook if you're choosing out of it. And so I'm going to go on over to audible.com and I'm going to type in, I'm just going to type in John Carpenter to see what pops up because I'm sure we're going to have a little bit of everything there. And let's see, we've got Shock Value, How a Few Eccentric Outsiders Gave Us Nightmares, Conquered Hollywood, and Invented Modern Horror by Jason Zinnemann. That one is just under 9 hours long, so that sounds pretty interesting. I'm sure it's about Carpenter and a lot of those guys of that, Romero and the guys of that era, right? Let's see. What else? Just scroll down a little bit. We've got, this is an Audible exclusive, The Gardener and the Carpenter. What the New Science of Child Development Tells Us About the Relationship Between Parents and Children. Donnie, that's a deep subject for you there.
I'm out.
By Alison Gopnik. And that one's just under 9 hours long. And then we've got, let's see, The Forbidden, God, good Lord, fuck that name up. Yeah. It's the New English. Dramatized.
You're not selling me on reading books here.
Dramatized adaptation, The Last Gunfighter, Book 4. So that means there's at least 3 previous, by William W. Johnston. And that one is a little over 5 hours long. So if tons of other stuff, I mean, I know it's random pulls, just putting in John Carpenter, but it's bringing up shit about carpentry and everything. So I'm sure you can find something. I mean, of course, there's like a Halloween adaptation on here, lots of other cool stuff. So if any of that floats your boat, you can go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobooks. Now I'm going to hop back on over to imdb.com and click on plot summary if I can find it. There it is. See if there's any long ones for you there, Donnie.
Yeah,
I'm not. Yeah, there is one. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I don't mind hearing about
okay, yeah. So at least it's the subject matter.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah, it's the subject. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've got the one sentence. They influence our decisions without us knowing it. They numb our senses without us feeling it. They control our lives without us realizing it. They live. That doesn't really tell you exactly what the hell is going on here, but it's intriguing description nonetheless. This one will tell you more. This is a long one. Submitted by cinema_fan over there. John Carpenter's slow and deliberate immersion of the daunting and worrying fable of the corrupt, deceiving and indifferent economic, social, and political society that has wrapped itself around its people and who, in turn, have blindly accepted their fate. Multicultural in more forms than anticipated, are the leading and upwardly mobile alien race who have gelled themselves into the human psyche and exploited it to its full potential. This is the story of an everyman, a no one, a nada, who stumbles upon their secret via an underground movement whose mission is to sabotage their plans and awaken the world to its sinister plans. With the help of a pair of sunglasses that shows the world as it really is, not in color, but a black and white parallel world that the subconscious has chosen to ignore, with subliminal messages as obey, conform, marry and reproduce, consume, watch television, sleep. It is through this thought control that the aliens have this world tied up and neatly packaged for its own manipulative uses, to further themselves at the expense of the meek, mild, and the lowly sufferers of a jobless and hungry world. This is the battle of self-awareness and one-man's struggle with a reality check that has these alien beings staging war against the uprising and rebellious armies from the gutters and streets. They live, you sleep. Where will your consciousness take you when the sleep is washed from your eyes? Welcome to the real world. Boy, that's a deep fucking synopsis there, right?
Yeah, that actually reminds me of, I work a soulless corporate job. And I actually, and you guys can edit this out or whatever, but
it all stays.
Yeah.
Oh, your badge, your work badge.
Yeah, it's my badge, man.
Okay, yeah, it's the it's one of the aliens from from the movie there. Yeah, it's got your name. It says Donnie.
Yeah, that's it.
Consume, obey,
consume. Darn it.
Work, breathe, live.
That's funny.
That's about right. Well, I think that's
fucking soulless corporation.
I think that's really one of your main takeaways from this movie is that aspect of it, right? Like the things that we've already talked about, but like if you're going to think of one thing from the movie, you think of when he puts the glasses on and then you see the billboards. It's it's like a cigarette billboard. He puts the glasses on, then it says consume. And then he looks over here and it's a TV, and then all of a sudden it just says obey. All these words that I just read. Like that's the eye-catching moments of this movie, right?
Oh, no doubt. Just like the advertisements, the imagery, the I guess subliminal messages that if you think about like media control and we could kind of this was just way ahead of its time, and it's still relevant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably a good time to talk about some of that stuff because there's a moment in the movie where they go to this meeting of the aliens, right? And I think it's a meeting that they're having with the traders, like because there's some that are just like they're kind of in on the gag and they're just doing it because they can gain money, gain power from it, right? So they have this big meeting, and the guy's like, he says something along the lines of, we're on path to completely take over the world by the year 2025, something like that, right? I was like, 2025? Oh shit,
Yeah.
But that did bring a few things in mind, right, Donnie, that you...
Yeah,
listed.
so I guess you could kind of say that, these predictions and kind of depictions could rival The Simpsons. The Simpsons is long known for, kind of predicting, future events. It was like, oh shit, like even the recent Stephen Hawking shit was apparently on The Simpsons. Anyway, so just kind of some of the predictions of this was, and this isn't really, I guess, relative to. Well, I guess it is. This would be present day with police misconduct.
I'd say that's almost always on the tip.
Yeah,
it's in the
you've got. I guess mega conglomerates of corporations in control. You've got the wealth disparity, which is mentioned, and some of it seems like the aliens or the ghouls really they actually appear to be white people, or
it's white people with all their skin taken off of them.
Yeah,
it's the muscular skeleton face of whatever.
And they're usually in these positions of kind of authority in a sense, because you do have, even though you do have a security guard, he still has a gun, but yeah, you do have the politician, the white privilege, without a better term for it. Climate change is also mentioned. You have drones that are featured actually in the very beginning, and smartwatches.
Yeah, it's all like on the level of the Jetsons too. It's like when you watch the Jetsons and you're like, if you want to start thinking about it like the dystopian view of the Jetsons, it's pretty fucking bleak, right? Why do they all live above the clouds in the Jetsons? Well, it's because the world went to shit and they just raised everything up. Right? They have the watches, like, Elroy watching TV on his fucking watch. Well, we have that, right? It's kind of the same thing. And like you said, it's Simpsons level. I look at these things more like irony, right? Like they're not really predicting anything. They're just kind of like, well, I'm sure even John Carpenter at the time, like you can just see where the trends are going. If you're paying attention, you can just see the way things are going. Let's just call it what it is. I think that's what he was doing here.
That's a good point.
I would say that you could apply a lot of things to we're not going to get political too much. No. You don't want me to get political at this one. Let's put it that way. But you can see things that relate to the Biden administration, let's say, and some other aspects of this, like even though it was Reaganomics at the time, Bidenomics, I don't know. You can let's just take this and apply it to modern times, and take it to different angles, because I'm sure I come at it from a different angle politically than other people would, but I can see into it what I see into it, and other people will see what they see.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing: that right there, what you're saying, is a good illustration of how good John Carpenter, or let's just say a good writer, or a good director, or a good person, that creates these type of forms of art.
Yeah.
Is that you can take it from any position you want to, and you can look at it the way you want. Like, don't they always say art is subjective, right? Like, it's like so
the best one.
Yeah,
subjective.
So I think that's kind of the angle of it. Like, like I'm sure lots of people over the years have tried to say even to John Carpenter, we're like, well, here's what you meant by this, and here's what you meant. And he's like, no, I didn't fucking mean that. I just meant it in the lens I was looking at it in 1988. Yeah.
You can come at this from you can almost come at this from, like, it's weird, like you said, it's different angles. It's almost like you could say it's communist in a way, but then you could also say it's anti-communist.
Yeah, it's both. It's both and neither.
Beauty of the writing of it, I guess you could say. And it's what was the other thing I was thinking of? A point to make was and talking about that part, it's slipped my mind, but it'll probably come back to me.
Yeah,
but like I said, take it different angles. You can go, the consumerist aspect. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Consumerist aspect, you could look at it from, like I was saying, like communism thing of like, not owning this or that or whatever, and people spend too much money. But also from the other perspective of just your average Joe, like spending all this money on stuff he doesn't need. You could see that from a different angle as well. Not just like, it's just the writing of this. And I think it's Carpenter's writing more so than the short story. But then again, the short story is written during the Cold War. So that Cold War era was probably what influenced the short story, which is still influencing Carpenter's work a little bit, because that was still, the Cold War was still kind of going on in 88.
You could sum it up as easy as the old saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Like, a lot of the same issues and things that people brought up in 1963 are the same shit that people were concerned about and brought up in 1988 that they do today, so I think that's where you kind of leave those type of things. But I think, to me, it's a good testament to John Carpenter and the work that all the people put in this movie, is that it does make you think and make you, look beyond just the silliness of the sci-fi alien aspect of it, right?
Which I guess some people at the time, even though it's looked on more in favorable eyes today than it was then, because of that, I guess, heavy, like we mentioned earlier, the heavy social commentary aspect coming at people in the late 80s was too much for them, I guess.
Yeah.
At least for the critics, and I guess for the moviegoers, because you would think this movie should have made more than 13 million, I would say.
Yeah, it's well done. But getting back to that aspect of it too, like, do you think him casting Roddy Piper and Keith David as kind of the leads here might have affected some of that? Like, if he'd have thrown, I don't know, who's a big name at the time, Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Stallone, somebody like that, right? If he'd have threw one of those guys in there, this probably makes way more bank at the box office than it does with Roddy Piper at the helm, right?
Oh, no doubt. But
from what I read on his background is that, like, he picked Piper because Piper he said something to the effect of he wore the years of living on his face. Like, he said he looked at Piper and was like, yeah, this dude's lived through some shit, in real life. So, like, he wanted him immediately. And apparently the role of Frank, he wrote for Keith David because of the work that he had done on the thing. So, like, it seems like he pretty much had these dudes in mind from the get-go. There was no Tom Cruise. There was no, bigger name being thrown around here.
And I think that works better for the movie. Like you're saying, like if it had been Stallone or Schwarzenegger, it would have become a Stallone or Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah.
Despite John Carpenter's name attached to it or anybody else, it would have just been that, summer blockbuster of Stallone for 1988 or whatever. And the social commentary might have been played down as well. Maybe it probably would have made more money, sure, but it definitely wouldn't have been the same movie.
I look at it like it's a very John Carpenter thing to do, right? I'm not putting Bruce Willis or Tom Cruise in this. Fuck you. It's Roddy Piper. It's Keith David, right? That's very John Carpenter. It feels like something George Romero would do, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that too, because remember that line near the end of the movie when the TV thing, and they're saying something about it's one of the aliens though, saying about violence. This is when they finally destroy the signal thing or whatever, right? And everybody can see it for what they are in color on without glasses or whatever. And it's like one of them is on TV and being interviewed, and they're saying something about the violence in movies today is so, I don't remember the exact lines, but so horrible or whatever. Especially these movies coming out from George Romero and John Carpenter.
Yeah. I'm sure Carpenter.
I do recall that.
Yeah. I'm sure Carpenter had quite a chuckle with himself on that, and probably Romero too, right when he saw it himself. But getting into the movie itself, how about at the very beginning, he puts the glasses on and then he gets to see the true alien faces. So it really kind of is a slow burn up to that point, as far as movie wise, you're kind of just watching this dude go through the motions of kind of a sad drifting existence. He needs work. He's down on his luck, whatever, you kind of build up to that moment. And then he kind of, digs around and acquires these glasses, I should say. And then he puts them on and then bam, everything changes. It's almost like if you hadn't seen any trailers and known anything about this movie, this would be the moment where you're kind of like, okay, well, this movie just changed on a fucking dime, right?
Yeah.
Some of the lines that he has, Piper specifically in this movie, one of the best, probably one of the more quoted ones that he has in this movie is, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum."
Yeah.
That's
a great line.
It is. It's got it. And also too, some of this, I don't know, I didn't see, but some of this has to be improv from Piper, right? Wouldn't you think? Because Piper was a wrestler, had been a wrestler for, well over a decade, even at this point, 10 to 15 years. So wrestlers are known, especially back in those days, for cutting promos, and they had to just come up with shit on the fly. So I'm sure some of this stuff had to have been improv by him, just like,
oh yeah,
I know this cool line from, that I did in Sheboygan a couple years ago. This should work perfectly, and then insert. But what do I know? Carpenter might have wrote that. I don't know, but
no. What I had read is actually Piper came up with it. He had used it at various times during his wrestling career, probably at untelevised shows, or I have no idea. But and he had a notebook of things that he would just kind of write down and just kind of ad lib or whatever, and he shared it with. He was like, "I love it."
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect. It does. The only slight beef I could think of while I was watching the movie is how Piper's character kind of changes on a dime once he is kind of clued in on the gag, right? Once he can see the aliens or whatever, his character seems to change. He goes from kind of a downtrodden, look, I'm just going to push through life. I'm going to do what I need to do. He does have a positive outlook, right? He's not a negative person. He's I believe in America and all that stuff, right? Remember his lines and all that?
Yeah.
But he's kind of, I'm going to be quiet and kind of do what I need to do to get through life. And then all of a sudden he sees this and it's it flips the switch. He becomes a different character. Not for the worse. It's just all of a sudden now he's the I'm kick ass chew bubblegum guy, just like that. It's kind of abrupt when you say character wise.
Mm-hmm.
How he is introduced to Holly. He carjacks her. And then he goes back to her house. He's kidnapped her, right? He's holding her hostage because he just needs a place to kind of lay low because now they're on to him, right? She's like, "I'm thirsty. I want to get something to drink." She walks over and gets the wine bottle. Man, she knocks the fuck out of him. He walks over there and she swings and hits him in the back of the head with the wine bottle and sends him flying out of the window and down a cliff, man. That probably would be the end of him, right? Right there. When you think that didn't kill you, that fuck you up pretty good.
I mean, it really did just kind of send him down the mountain.
Yeah. Now, a little bit further on, where he's after that, he lost the sunglasses, right? So now he's kind of desperate to find the glasses again. He goes back to the trash can where he had hid that box that had a bunch of sunglasses in it, and it's gone. He looks over, it's in the back of a dump truck, right? He crawls up in the, not just a dump truck, but a trash truck, right? He crawls up in the back of it, digs around a little bit, finds the box of glasses, and finally I've got the glasses. Then the dump truck turns up, and I know it's a funny moment where he kind of looks at the camera like, "Uh-oh," and then slides out of But why the fuck did the trash truck dump him out? That was the only thing. Why did that happen? The dude's dumping. I mean, he's picking up trash. He's a trash guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that scene didn't make sense other than him needing to get out or having kind of a humorous situation where he's sliding out the dump truck, maybe. But you would think, because the garbage guy didn't know that the back had been reopened. I mean, I don't know. Why would you tilt it anyways? You know what I mean?
Like he did. Dude dumps the trash, leaves him and the trash in the middle of the street, and then just puts it back down and drives off. So, like, why the fuck would you? Why would you pick up the trash and then dump it in the middle of the damn street?
Because I mean, if he thought that the back was closed, you're just going to drive off, right? You go pick up your next load somewhere. You're not going to for any reason. So
that was the only. I was stuck on it for like way longer than I should have been. I was like, why the fuck did he do that? Like, he just like. He didn't know he was back there. Why would he just dump all the trash out that he just picked up? Or whatever. Then this leads us to one of the most epic fist fights in film history. The full out just beating each other's ass epic fight between Nada and Frank. Where it's the only reason they're fighting is because he won't put the fucking sunglasses on. This thing takes up almost 6 full minutes of runtime, and it's one of those. It's awesome. It's a real fight though. You know, it's not like one of those. It's not one of those like over choreographed John Wick type fights. You know, like or a Jackie Chan or any kung fu flick, right? And it's nothing like that. This is like 2 dudes in an alley just beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, it is like a brawl, and it is raw as fuck.
Low blows.
Suplexes.
Yeah, like
it's a suplex in there.
It can't be overstated. If you've never seen They Live, first off, we're a spoiler podcast. So you need to go check it out, right? We're gonna completely spoil it for you here in just a few minutes. But if you only want to watch this movie just for this, I won't blame you. You need to go witness this fight. I forget how far into the movie it is. It's probably roughly about halfway, right? Give or take 45 minutes in or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But yeah, like it's worth the price of admission just to watch this fight. I'll leave it there. It is awesome. Right after that, one of Piper's next lines, "Brother, life's a bitch. She's back in heat." Another classic.
Underrated.
Yeah, another classic. So fast forward, they kind of team up with Gilbert, which is a guy that was kind of like running the homeless encampment there that had helped them earlier in the movie. They run back into him and they join up with the resistance or whatever, right? And really the only thing I can think of is the whole reason for this is to not only show you that there is a small resistance of people that are trying to fight this, but also just to take the sunglasses away. That's the main reason I think for this scene. It's like, they can't go around the rest of the movie just wearing these sunglasses because the sunglasses get knocked off and they're screwed, right? So they take the sunglasses off and they put in these contacts. So that explains the rest of the movie. Like now they can see the real world because they're wearing these contacts. Holly, who was the girl that Nada had kidnapped earlier in the movie, she randomly shows back up and she has joined the resistance. And just then, like an alien. Well, maybe not all aliens, but like the police force backed by the aliens all raid this meeting, the resistance meeting hall. They raid it and just pretty much mow most of them down, right? Like they don't just take it out. Like they pretty much kill just about everybody here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not random necessarily, right? As we find out.
Yeah, well, we're about to find out here in just a few minutes. It's not a random coincidence that it happens. But this is where they also start to lean a little bit heavier into the sci-fi side of things, beyond just the alien part of it, right? The aliens have this little watch that they all wear, and not only can they talk back and forth to each other, but apparently it can open up like a portal into a... What exactly did they go into there? Is it another dimension? Is it just another part of town? What exactly... Where does the watch take them? What was your take on that?
My take on it is that it's just I don't think it's necessarily another part of town, or I think it's just maybe it's a dimensional. I don't think it's another dimension. It's a way to transport them from this physical plane to that physical plane, but I still think it's in the same world or dimension or whatever, that it's just another,
yeah, I mean, like,
sort of like the transporter device thing. Yeah.
My original thoughts on it were like it just kind of takes them to the underneath, right? It takes them to the sewers or whatever. But then there's this bit when they kind of take the tour, and you see what looks like space, right? Like an open here's space, and then like they can just stand on this thing like Star Trek transporter type thing, and then get sent to wherever the fuck they're going. So like it was hard to. The geography of this was weird. Like, are they just underground, or are they on a spaceship, or
maybe it's just like a portal, like different dimensions, and they're just like traveling through wormholes or something.
Yeah. Well, that part is something different. Like the part where they were getting sent out into whatever. I took that to be different than the hole that opened up to let them go through to. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I thought that the interdimensional thing is them traveling to different dimensions or planets or wherever. But the portal thing was just a way to get around Earth.
Home base. I thought it was just like a home base.
I don't know.
Like that news channel place.
Yeah, like it's like upstairs, right? Like it's upstairs of their home base or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just that part with the space thing kind of threw me. It's like I can accept that it's just like they're in a different part of Los Angeles. But all of a sudden they cut the corner and then it looks like wide open space and they can teleport to any other, planet or wherever the hell they want to go. And then they just kind of turn around and, oh, by the way, the TV station's up on the roof. Wait a minute, where are we at here? Like, it was just kind of backwards geography for me for a second. I got twisted. Turns out that old George Buck Flower, earlier he's one of the homeless drifters or whatever. He has turned traitor. And he's, a part of the rich folk now, right? Like, oh, come on, we're already screwed. Come and play the game, like it's all for $1, right?
He thinks that they're there for the same reason. He's like, you boys could at least dress for the occasion, because he's all done up to the T in his suit.
Yeah, he's in like a tux or whatever. It was like some sort of formal event.
So he shows them around the whole thing. This is where you see everything we were just talking about. They decide to go up to the top because now they got to take out the satellite tower. They're going to take out the transmission because this is what they think this is what's doing it, right? They go up top. They're almost there. They're about to literally go up on the roof. And Holly, who has joined them, like they find her randomly in the hallway. So now she's with Frank and Nada. Holly turns around and just shoots Frank. Bam. He's gone. So Nada goes up to the roof by himself. He doesn't know it yet. And he's like, hey, Holly, Frank, check it out. This is where we are. We're at the satellite. And she says something like, turn around, whatever the fuck she says, right? And Nada has to kill her because now he's realized that she has killed Frank. So he kills her, but then he turns around and shoots the satellite, which knocks out the signal.
The feed or whatever.
The signal that they're sending out. So now everybody can see the aliens. And the only question there is, all right, he blows up the satellite. There's a helicopter flying around. They shoot him. Nada's laying on the ground, and he's still alive. But do you see him die? Or I assume that, like, if you didn't see him die there, he does die shortly thereafter, right? I would imagine. I don't think he's still alive at this point. But do you think, like, that's the moment that he dies when it blows up?
Yeah.
That's what I've assumed. I always assumed, I guess.
Because he's like, fuck it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At that point, he's just like, well, I'm taking everything, I got to do what I got to do to end this shit, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it, though. Like, you see the brief moment of everything kind of crumbling for the aliens. Like, everybody can see, the veil has been lifted. They can see what they are now and then hit the credits. So, that's They Live.
Yeah, well, the credits is one of my favorite 80s endings.
With the cut of the aliens being revealed?
Yeah, the girl.
Oh, yeah.
The one having sex with.
Yeah, having sex.
Yeah, she looks down.
He's like, what's wrong, baby?
Yeah.
That was awesome. This movie's awesome.
So there we have it. The 80s cult classic starring Roddy Piper and Keith David, They Live. Another John Carpenter classic. The dude really had a run, didn't he? I mean, we've talked about it before when we've done a couple other Carpenter flicks, but man, that run that Carpenter had from like the late 70s to early 90s, boy, you'd be hard pressed to top some of the output he was putting out at that time, man. Just some great stuff. Not many that are you would even consider close to a stinker, right? Like all great in their own ways.
I mean, hell, one of them definitely the Thing. I've said it before, is my favorite remake of all time. One of my favorite films of all time. And I think we all gave it a 5, right? I think, or somewhere in there.
I have to pull it up, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all.
I believe we did.
Yeah,
I believe all of us gave it 5s.
Except for Will. Will wasn't there, so he never went back and watched it. So all 3 of us gave it a 5. So there you go. That's They Live. So Donnie, what do you say? What's your thoughts and your star rating on it?
Oh man, this is like we're getting into the upper echelon of my kind of wheelhouse. But no, well, I love this movie. I always have. I always will. I'm kind of with you on the what you mentioned on the onset. I think this is more sci-fi than horror. It certainly does have some horror elements, but it's well within what the scope of what we do, whether it be Cold Corner or what have you. But we would have eventually gotten to it anyway. So great pick by Will. The fight scene is incredible. This movie is still relevant to modern times. God, man, I love this movie. I'm going to give it 5. I'm going to give it 5 stars.
Smoke, what do you say?
Yeah, this is grade A Carpenter, as we've already mentioned. And it's perfectly relevant to whatever period, really, just about. Because, as we mentioned, his way of writing the movie was it could apply to whatever side or view you have. You can pretty much apply it to this movie and see that in it. Get masterful storytelling, and plot also moves along. The dialogue, the actors. Like you said, if you'd chosen anybody else that were more bigger names, I mean, Piper was big in wrestling, and he had done some acting roles, but you don't really think of him as this major action, superstar or whatever. So, and I think you could put, he wasn't doing Roddy Piper necessarily. So you don't see that in it either. I think that's another great thing. Like you don't, because it'd be easy to sit there and imagine him in the kilt doing, doing Piper or something, but you don't equate that at all. Even though he probably did ad-lib some of those lines and come up with some good stuff. But nothing that takes away from the movie and the plot and everything. So that was great. Soundtrack is typical. I mean, it's not as great as Halloween or some of the other, but it is still Alan Horwath and John Carpenter doing the soundtrack as usual. So that's great as well. I think I'll give it, and Donnie mentioned is sci-fi and horror. That's one of my favorite things too, is when you can do a good combination of sci-fi and horror together, like Aliens, any number. Let's keep going. I think that's the ratio of one to the other, and plus action. I mean, there's a lot of action in there too. That epic fight scene. I mean, there's all kinds of great stuff. I think I'll go with 4.5 stars. I'll go with 4.5.
Hard to argue it, and I won't. Smoke, I think I'm more on your level. Like I want to go 5, but I don't think I can go quite 5. So I'm going to go 4.5 myself. I love this movie. I've seen it, like I said earlier, a dozen times, and I'll probably watch it a dozen times more before I tap out. I mean, it's a great movie. Like you said, Donnie, it's still relevant today, and it probably will be 50 more years from now, And as times change, the message doesn't change that much, So in that way, it's just a good. It's just so well done. I mean, I can't think of another way to put it. It's just so well done, and it probably would have hit differently if it had anyone else but Piper in it. I think he really does. To what you were saying, Smokey, he's acting his ass off here. He's not being the wrestler. He's truly doing a good job of acting, I think. I'm sure some people would probably crap on it because he's not an actor, but I think that's what Carpenter was going for. He didn't want just another actor to do this. He wanted a guy like this to do it. So, awesome performance. Just so well done. I love the movie. 4.5 stars. So Tiana, what do you say?
I'm going to go with 4.5 stars also. And it's just a fun film to watch anytime. Great acting. And I feel like it's somewhat of a comedy too, which makes it fun.
Yeah. Tons of comedy elements there, for sure.
just I don't know if we mentioned him necessarily directly, but just Piper's lines when he's addressing the aliens after he recognizes the aliens with sunglasses on, and he's like cutting them down basically, and they're like, oh, that stuff was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out again. That might be ad lib too. I don't know, but there were some good lines.
I'm sure there probably has to be some improv stuff there. You know, it would make sense with Piper's character for sure. You said it right, Tiana. It's a lot of fun. It really is. It's a lot of fun. You know, for something that could have been kind of heavy and serious because of what he was talking about, Carpenter finds a way to have a good time with it too. You know, so I think sometimes it's in the way the message is delivered that helps the medicine go down a little bit sometimes. You know, so to put it simply. So yeah, that's a good point. As far as our usual background stuff.
Connections from the crypt.
Listening to the Crypt Keeper laugh there reminds me that you weren't there for when we did the Tales from the Crypt episode for the Christmas Viewer's Choice thing, and I was like, Donnie, you missed your perfect
the one
spot.
time.
Yeah. You weren't there, but anyways, what do you got for They Live?
All right, so on the cast side, we've got probably no surprise here. Keith David dates back to when we did You Might Be the Killer, which I forgot he was in that.
Good Lord. He was in it, but remember, you never saw him. It was just his voice.
It was his voice. But that, still counts as a connection.
Counts.
So
I just mean that, like, maybe that's why you forgot, because you don't actually see him. Yeah.
Yeah. So Keith David from You Might Be the Killer. He was also in The Thing, which we covered. And he was also in last week's episode, Braddock, Missing in Action 3.
Yeah, which, like we pointed out last week, is so weird that he was in this movie and that in the same year. But it has such a small throwaway role in that movie that it's crazy, right?
Exactly. So, and then on the crew side, it's probably, kind of easy pickings to mention John Carpenter here, but I went a different direction. Wanted to give, some kind of spotlight to somebody else. So, there was a stuntman specifically, Gilbert B. Combs, and he was a stuntman for Tiana's favorite, Showgirls. Also Die Hard, Independence Day, and Josh, your favorite, Barbed Wire.
Oh God! Well, could have been worse. You could have said House of Wax or something like that. So Barbed Wire is more acceptable than that. I'll say.
Yeah. So some crap connections there too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we don't have the official kill count from Will because he's not here, but let's talk about the kill reel.
Highlight kill.
All right, this one's a little tough because, like, there's lots of random death in this movie, like them just shooting the aliens and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard for me to peg one highlight kill, but I guess just because of that, I got to go with, although it's not a kill, it's more of a sacrificial death, right? I got to go with Nada dying at the end of it because, like, that's the ultimate moment, right? That's the climax of the movie is him sacrificing himself for the greater good. So, like, I can't really think of one other death that sticks out to me, any more than that. Definitely none as impactful as that, other than, even unfortunately Frank getting popped. Like, it kind of happens like, bam, he's gone. You don't even see the aftermath of it. So, but then again, I guess you question whether or not it died there or not. I guess there is that lingering John Carpenter-esque, like, is he dead? He loves to do that stuff, like in The Thing, right? Like the end of that one. So he likes to kind of leave it hanging out there a little bit, but I'd say he's dead. So I'm going to go with that as the highlight kill, is Nada's death at the end of it. So we'll wrap it up with
Gore Score.
Yeah, this one, not a lot of gore in it. I mean, it's horror, it's rated R, but there's not much gore, and you don't really, because of that intermingling of the sci-fi and the horror elements and the humor going on and all these the political allegory and all that, you don't really miss it necessarily. You don't need it. It's not really meant to be a super gory movie anyway. And most of the gore comes from shotgun. You have gun squibs, especially I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Then he proceeds to kick ass. by blasting some of these aliens away with that shotgun,
Yeah.
and you get some like blood splatter. I mean, black and white mainly because he's looking through his sunglasses. So yeah, most of that gore that I think of was squibs. I really can't think of anything else that was. There was the brutal fight between him, Keith David and Roddy Piper, but it wasn't gory, but it is brutal. I mean, and it goes on for 6 minutes, so I mean it's violent. But yeah, not a whole lot of gore. And as everybody who's watched this show knows, the gore score is based on Chaz Balin's gore score. So a lot of times I like to defer to him first to see what he gave it. And this movie is in that. It's right at the edge because I think he put those magazines in last book out, the not Deep Red Horror Handbook. That's one of his, but yeah, it is this one. It is Deep Red Horror Handbook. I think this came out in 1989 maybe or so. So it's right there at the edge, and he did have They Live in there. So he gave it a 5, and I'm gonna agree, I believe, with Chaz's 5 on this one. Sometimes I'll edit it if I think it maybe needs a little bit more, a little less, whatever. But I think that he called it right on the head. It's not a very gory movie. It's got the blood squibs and various other violence in it, but 5 it is.
Yeah, I think that's right on it. And this isn't the kind of movie that you don't come here for that. Like, and there's a lot of horror elements to it, but it's not of the bloody variety. It's more of like situational horror too, so it's not necessary, but would we have frowned upon it if there were more there? Absolutely not, because that's the kind of shit that we love. But there's not much of it, and it's not necessary. So I think that's hitting it dead on the head. So as far as next week is concerned, what we're going to be watching, well, we spun the wheel right before we went on the air. We all nominated one. We spun it, and it landed on what ended up being Smoke's choice, and that is A Clockwork Orange from 1971, because this is for Cult Corner. So a definitive cult classic for sure. Another Stanley Kubrick movie. So the IMDb one-sentence synopsis is, in the future, a sadistic gang leader is imprisoned and volunteers for a conduct aversion experiment, but it doesn't go as planned. So get ready for the mind fuckery of A Clockwork Orange next week here on the Spook Show. Man, it's been at least 20 years or so since I've seen this movie. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out myself. So
it'll be awesome.
Yeah, another great pull, another good selection for Cult Corner. So that'll pretty much wrap it up here for They Live. So we ended up giving it a consensus of 4.6 out of 5 stars. So it doesn't get much better than that. We highly recommend you go check it out. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, Professor Smoke, Tiana, I'm Josh. We're from the All American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next week for A Clockwork Orange, our latest Cult Corner.